Welcome to Talent Fueling Ambition, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the unfiltered realities of building and scaling a business from the ground up. I'm Jason Walker.
And I'm Regan Higgins.
And together, we'll dive deep into what it really takes to grow, lead and succeed on your own terms. From hard lessons to big wins, we're here to share the truths we wish we knew when we started. And we'll be joined by some incredible guest speakers on our way. This podcast is for the founders, the leaders and the entrepreneurs, the ones bold enough to chase what's next. So tell me, what's your memory about how we met?
It was my second round of interviews back at Hayes, and I didn't make the cut, or a little bit too late to make the assessment centre. You'd gone through that process already. So you did a one-on-one with me. You ran your own little mini assessment centre with me down in the old Penrose office. That would have been maybe March 2006.
So nearly 20 years later, and doing incredibly well with the Franklin Smith model. So when I left the Hayes business, the corporate business in 2018, I'd spent the last 8 to 10 years doing advising, consulting, leadership training and development, and Regan was generous enough to be one of my first clients, and we're talking almost 10 years ago at that point.
Yep.
You've always been incredibly supportive of everything and anything I've done, and I've been in envy of watching how you've been able to take this business and grow it to the extent that you have, and the awards and being a finalist at the Deloitte Fast 50 is a testament to that. But the Walker Smith idea...
You've been involved in our business for 10 years, and there's been so many different components that you've had exposure to. Back in that early stage of when you were consulting to our business, there was a want for me to lean on your experience and maybe look at something a little bit more in a little bit more depth. And how this actually happened and how it's all come together, I think it's just been a process of conversations and you getting to really understand what we're about as a business, not just from an operational point of view, but the people dynamics across our business, which is what makes it very special.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I got the passion back for doing it because I'd sort of lost the will to live after working for the large corporates, and I just wanted to go out and do my thing on my own and just distance myself. I got involved with a private equity company, talking to recruitment leaders and recruitment owners, and then getting into the rec-to-rec side of the world. And again, working with you along that journey, I suddenly discovered that passion again and thinking, you know what, I want to try this one more time. So I've called this The Last Dance. And, you know, we started having this conversation, and it was almost like we'd come to the conclusion, well, Jason, look at all the structure and the foundation that we have in place. Regan's always trusted me from a capability and a credibility side of things.
There's not many people really understand our business from an external point of view, and that's had the exposure across the board, from financials through to some of those operational challenges that any business has.
Yes.
And I think we've been lucky enough to share a very similar vision, and there's parts of our business that we needed to probably apply more structure to, and having that ability to really lean on your experience and your success and what you've done and what you've built, it was an absolute no-brainer.
Did you ever think about packing it all in and quitting at any stage?
Constantly, but there were, I mean, when you manage people, right, you got your good days and your bad days, but it was when I'd come back from the UK. I'd worked in the UK for 6 years for the Hayes business, come back to run the organisation here. I was told it was a really stable business. They were getting some great results. They were a really big, solid team. Rocked in day one. There was 4 people in the office. There was supposed to be 5, but the new consultant had gone horse riding, fell off a horse that day and never returned, right? The 4 consultants in there, great people as individuals, but did not like each other. And they'd just come off doing a terrible performance. Unemployment rate was 6.6%, so tougher than today's market. And I had a look around and I chatted to them, and I was like, this was not what I was sold.
Yeah.
So I go into the room, pick up the phone and talk to the managing director of the time of the Australasian business, who basically sold me the dream and the role. And I said, I won't mention his name, he knows who he is, and he actually remembers this conversation too. I said, I've got into the business, there's 4 staff that they don't seem to like each other. They've done terrible results. It's not what you said it was going to be. And he yelled at me down the phone. He said, yeah, well, I lied. And if you don't turn it around in 12 months, I'm shutting the whole thing down. And then he hung up on me. And I sat there stunned. And then I thought, I remember I stood up, I looked out the window, and I was like, what am I going to do?
You'd moved from the UK to come and...
I'd moved from the UK, yeah.
This business?
You know, part of it was a personal reason, but I also thought great opportunity to bring up my young kids in New Zealand, the schooling and the opportunities here from the educational front I thought were significantly better. And then I just thought, what am I going to do? And there was two other major players in the market. I didn't really know the market that well because I've been away for 6 years. And I thought, do I just walk away? Do I just walk away and do something on my own or start it with somebody else? And it was at that moment I just decided, no, you can take ownership of the situation and build something of yourself. And at that point I thought, one day I know I will leave. So what do I want to achieve at that point? And for me, it was reputation, credibility, and being known as the person who gets shit done and gets results. And so that's all I focused on. And that's what really started my trajectory in the journey to build it to what it became. What about yourself? You must have gone through situations where you felt like throwing it all in, chucking in the towel.
There's been challenges. There's definitely been those moments. But I think probably the most memorable one for me was probably back at Hayes as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Or was it after a meeting with me?
No, I don't think it ever got to that point with you. It probably came close, but no. Look, the market was tough and my focus was very narrow and I was finding it quite difficult. What I was recruiting into, I loved. I had a passion for, and it was within the construction industry. And I remember having a rough day in the office, and I went to Unitech. I was recruiting for quantity surveyors at the time, and I went in and I got the application form to fill in to become a quantity surveyor.
Really?
And I never followed through. And the change, and I got bitten by the recruitment bug at that point. And quitting's not in my nature. And for me, what drives me is people and who I work around and the energy that I get from those people. It's kept me engaged and ploughing forward. That quitting piece it's never been there. And that energy piece and the power of people and what we can do together, that's what I keep sort of gravitating back towards in those moments where it sort of has been challenging or tough. I just see the reward that I get from people that sort of gets rid of any of those sort of thoughts.
I've said to you time and time again, you're the most loyal, I think, individual I've come across in business, which is, again, a great trait, and that's why I'm excited that we're working together.
Me too.
So, Regan, you've been, recruitment now 20 years?
Close to.
So what would you say were some of the biggest lessons that you've learnt, and were there some mistakes that ultimately you felt, actually, it's good that I did that because I've learned so much moving forward when you built the Franklin Smith brand?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's been mistakes. There's been opportunity that's probably been passed by, or opportunity has been overanalyzed. There's been environments that I've been a part of that have taught me so much. That's been either a motivator of how to do things, how to build things differently or better. But look, there's been a few things over the years that have really paid off. And I think what's led to that and that decision-making process where it can be quite easy to pull the pin on something. You've got to weigh up from a commercial angle of how much time, effort, and essentially money's been poured into something over a period of time, what that upside could be, and where your focus is. And if that focus is aligned and there's a commercial opportunity there, it's having that ability to stick at it and work through that and refine. Having faith in what goes into something, whether it's key performance indicators or whatever optics you're using to sort of analyse an opportunity. It's making sure you've got a core focus, in my view, and you're sticking to a plan.
Would you have done anything differently, do you think?
No, I wouldn't. And I think those mistakes that have been made, you learn from. And if you're utilising that as experience, no, there's not much anyway. Jace, scaling one of the biggest recruitment businesses in New Zealand.
Back in the day?
Mid-2000s.
That's it. Early 2000s, yeah.
What did you have to implement? You obviously had some challenges going into that environment at the start with a team that wasn't probably as cohesive as you were led to believe, and the business wasn't performing how you were sold it. What did you implement to look at sort of bringing that cohesion together, looking at scaling a business? What did that take?
Well, there was a lot of trial and failure, but I like to look at things right now. I mean, I like to consider myself, I'm in my 5th decade, so I'm version 5.0, right? So I think, well, what have I learned through the other versions, right through? And when I arrived back and I got to the point where I'm going to stay, what do I need to do? So the first thing I tried to do with a group of 4 people is introduce some structure into their day. Well, they told me to piss off. It was like, we're not going to do that. What are you going to do about it? Right? And I was like, well, fair enough. I mean, I've just come back from the UK. These guys, even though they hadn't been doing well initially, they're still the fabric of the business. And the first thing I decided is that I need to show them that I can do this job. So leading from the front to show them that I can work with them and alongside them, that was the first thing that I needed to do. Second, they'd been operating as a small business for so long, they didn't really have a goal or any vision. So then it was trying to create and implement a vision that they really believed in, that they belonged to, that they felt part of. Thirdly, because of the size of the business, I need to then reduce the volatility of the business by building scale into it. And so I had to analyse, well, where do I build scale? How do I create scale so that we're not volatile? So that what if 4 people walked out tomorrow, I would have no business. They would shut it down. How do I reduce that volatility? And then it was all about making sure that they saw me as, and I think this has been my reputation right through the recruitment industry and recruitment world, is that I'm firm but fair. I'm consistent with my decisions. I can be trusted with my decisions. And at the same time, if they ever needed or wanted for anything, that I had the ability to provide them with the resources to be able to help them achieve those goals and dreams. Not everyone worked out, and not everyone liked me because of that. I've had a reputation for that firmness. However, when you look at the recruitment industry and landscape today, there are 30 or 40 recruitment businesses out there right now where they've all been working with me or for me at some given stage over the last 20 years. And now what have I learned from all of that is I know where to focus my energies to build this business today. I like to compare it to, let's say you're a sportsman and you're a young sports person, doesn't matter what sport you play, you run for every ball, right? You burst all the energy, and you, even though you're fitter, you're younger, you can get burnt out quite quickly because you're throwing energy at everything. As you get older, you've only got a limited supply of that energy. And what I've worked out over the last 30 years is where I should focus that energy to get the biggest impact in terms of results. And I think that's been the greatest learn from me through that time. And now I know what I can implement. I can do it a lot quicker. I can do it with the same level of energy, but I think it has a greater impact. So Regan, let's talk about your scaling journey. What have you learned in terms of the type of rules or framework or boundaries that you now put in place from scaling that you've learnt from those past challenges?
Yeah, I think what I've learned, it's been really important for me that everybody in the business has a voice and works in a collaborative manner. But I think also everyone works so hard. It's a high-performing team, and managing that burnout piece and sort of making sure that we're across what challenges the team have on a day-to-day basis, and really sort of focusing on coming together on a regular basis as a leadership team to make sure that we understand what's happening on the ground and having a level of engagement with everybody across the business, I think has been super, super critical to sort of make any changes, to react to anything that we need to ensure that the right systems and infrastructure there have been in place whilst we've scaled. And what that's allowed us to do is to make really fast, efficient decisions and not make it too laborious in regards to a drawn-out decision-making process, which has really allowed us to scale.
I think it's an important part that definitely everyone having a voice in your business and be part of the solution and part of how you drive the business forward. And I think that's an essential part of making sure that everyone, I find, needs to have clarity in what they do. There's a clarity in their responsibilities, and it also needs a clarity of expectation right from the start, because no one likes surprises in their business, and individuals don't like surprises. And particularly if they come to you and say, I didn't commit to that. This is not what I signed up for.
On that voice piece as well, open door policy, I think that's been really important. But what I have learned is not going too granular with too much information, because there's been once or twice that we've sort of opened up part of a decision-making process to the whole floor, to the whole business, and it's drawn everything out. So it's selecting the right information to pass down. If it's going to fundamentally affect them, yes, absolutely, we'll have that conversation. But it's just understanding what decisions we want input on, or we need input, and what doesn't need that input, because people can get wrapped up in the wrong things sometimes, and it can cloud what we're trying to achieve.
I remember many, many years ago, there was a lot of research done in the UK about recruitment consultants. And apparently that anyone who can last as a recruitment consultant for more than 2 years has got something apparently dysfunctional about their personality. Now, I've been in the industry 30 years, you've been in the industry 20 years, so I don't know what that says about us,
just
right?
Gotta say.
But then we know that with recruitment consultants, and particularly when they start getting successful, challenges can come along with that. And quite early on within the business that we're looking to build together, the Walker Smith business, right from day one, is that the team that we're bringing on board, it's all about making sure that, yes, everyone has a voice, everyone has clarity, but at the same time, no individual is bigger than the team. Like, we're looking to build something which is going to be market leading and groundbreaking. We might be looking at providing services outside recruitment as well, because are there any ways that we can add different value to our customers and our clients?
Absolutely.
And I think when it starts to break down, and I've seen this over a number of years of managing large teams of people, is when the individual decides that they're bigger than the business and they start becoming a roadblock for everyone else's progress. I've made a mistake in the past to pandering to that, to the detriment to the team.
And it's hard, right? You don't always see that when you're in the thick of it, having that ability to bounce off somebody else to help build some of your clarity, because you're responsible for a lot.
Yes.
And sometimes running a business, you can be blinkered at times.
Absolutely.
And I don't mind egos. I don't mind people having, everyone has an ego.
We wouldn't be here.
No, exactly. But everyone has an ego to a certain extent. But when it's a toxic ego and it becomes very introspective and it's all about them, and that can be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you're ready to support and provide all the resources required if that is pointed in the right direction, right? Which is the direction of the team, direction of growth, direction of support, direction of mentoring, results, competition, all that type of thing. But when it becomes about, it's me over them, I think that's when the challenge is.
You mentioned it earlier, right? You've got that clarity piece, and if everyone understands what that looks like and what we want to achieve and what the goals are, and we're working towards that together in that collaborative manner, which makes it fun.
I've heard a term the other day, it was called co-elaboration, which is, how about that? There's a new catchphrase. Combination of cooperation and competition, which if you can get those two combined, then you're going to have a pretty outstanding team dynamic in the culture of your business.
Absolutely.
So Regan, if you had to start from scratch all over again, right, you had no network, no money, no reputation, and you had to do it all again, what would you do?
I wouldn't bother.
You marry well.
I married well. Anyway.
You've got to say that, right?
Yeah, she's an amazing. My wife is amazing. It'd make it really tough without that network, without those relationships there in place. Look, I think the big thing is if you're passionate about something though, and you've got a drive and some fire in your belly, you've got to give it a crack. You've got to go after it, because you'll forever kick yourself for not doing it. Success for me, and I've seen businesses come and go. I've seen relationships come and go. Unfortunately, and it's been one of the hardest things to sort of deal with over the years. But I really do think if you've got that vision, the passion there, go after it. I think success for me is anybody that has given it a go, whether they've failed or they've built something from nothing. They've given it a crack. That's success in my view. I think a lot of people don't understand the costs of running a business, the intricacies and how complex it all is. It's not easy. Anyone that thinks it's going to be easy, they're doing it for the wrong reasons. They're probably doing it purely for money. I've never done it for the financial side of things. I've done it for the people and the reward that comes from that, and seeing that individual growth. That's success for me.
When I was working in that private equity business, one of their big value propositions was having all that structural support behind an entrepreneur in the recruitment world setting up, because their figures showed that less than 7% of all recruitment agencies have more than 5 staff, right? And that's globally. which really signifies as the challenges of actually going out alone. I think I did start from scratch. Okay, I had the networks and those types of things, but it was really difficult doing it alone, because I think even in today, with more technology, with more networks, with more access, I think, to a number of opportunities, I think it is even harder to set something up like this on your own, because you've just got to be across so many different things. And I don't think there's anyone out there that has the thinking real estate to be able to cover everything at any given time.
It doesn't get any easier as well. That growth, you need to have some amazing people around you that, once again, they have to share the same vision.
Yeah.
It's super, super important what you want to go out there and achieve.
So that would be our advice then, really, wouldn't it? Is that if you have the opportunity and you don't have the networks and you don't have the money, you don't have the connections, find somebody who's going to mentor you, support you, or be on your side to help you get there. I think that's what we would probably do the same thing, yeah. And that's what we've done with the Walker Smith business. We've managed to search each other out, and I think that we could have done this independently, alone. I don't think it would create the same level of energy that we're getting from each other. I don't believe it would be as successful in the long run.
No, we wouldn't have the impact, or we wouldn't be scaling to the same level. We've got, from the Franklin Smith brand, we've got sort of core components of our business, core focus, and it's very easy to sort of go all into that and get consumed and wrapped up in, from a time point of view, in that part of your business. Yeah,
and we now have a real opportunity to build something quite unique. Even though that it's sort of a sister organisation, so to speak, we're looking at really building a unique business that has a really different flavour and feel in that professional services place, but taking from the experience that you and I have both gained over the last 2 to 3 decades. Regan, thanks for joining us today on the Talent Fueling Ambition podcast, and we'll be coming back to you with more advice, more insights to help the founders, the leaders and the entrepreneurs in the recruitment global marketplace.